The apartment door slammed shut with more force than necessary, making the walls vibrate. Zixa Theta stood frozen in the middle of the living room, all four of his arms hanging limply at his sides. His large, multifaceted eyes reflected the afternoon sunlight streaming through the window, creating tiny rainbows across their surface. "Bad day at work?" Jake called from the kitchen, not bothering to look up from the sandwich he was making. After 3 months of living with an alien roommate, he had gotten used to the dramatic entrances. Zixa Theta's mandibles clicked in frustration. "The humans at the office are impossible to understand. Today they gathered in the break room and consumed heated plant matter while making meaningless sounds at each other. When I attempted to join their gathering, they became silent." Jake paused, mayo-covered knife in hand. "Wait, you mean they were having coffee and chatting?" "Coffee." Zixa Theta repeated the word like it was foreign, which technically it was. "This brown liquid that smells of burnt vegetation. They consume it constantly, yet it provides minimal nutritional value." Jake couldn't help but chuckle. He grabbed 2 mugs from the cabinet, one regular-sized and one extra-large, to accommodate Zixa Theta's larger hands. "Come here, buddy. Time for your first coffee experience." The alien approached cautiously, his antennae twitching with curiosity. Jake had learned that meant Zixa Theta was analyzing chemical compounds in the air. "You wish to poison me with this substance?" "It's not poison." "Well, not exactly." Jake poured hot water over instant coffee grounds. The cheap stuff would do for a first-timer. "It's more like a social lubricant. Humans bond over coffee." Zixa Theta accepted the mug with his upper right hand, examining the dark liquid suspiciously. Steam rose from the surface, carrying the distinctive aroma that humans found either comforting or essential, depending on the time of day. He extended his feeding tube slightly, then retracted it. "The temperature is excessive for consumption," he observed. "You blow on it, like this." Jake demonstrated, sending small ripples across his coffee's surface. "Or just wait a bit. Here, let me show you the real magic." He opened the fridge and pulled out milk and sugar. "See, plain coffee is just the start. You customize it." Zixa Theta watched in fascination as Jake added sugar to the alien's mug, stirring until it dissolved. Then came a splash of milk, transforming the bitter black liquid into something softer, lighter. Humans modify their food post-preparation? All the time. Try it now. The alien extended his feeding tube again, this time making contact with the coffee. His eyes widened, all 6 of them. The taste was unlike anything in his species' diet, bitter yet sweet, harsh yet smooth, with undertones he couldn't quite identify. But more interesting was the effect. A warmth spread through his thoracic cavity, and his hearts began beating slightly faster. "The chemical compounds are stimulating," Zixa Theta mused. He took another sip, longer this time. "My neural pathways are responding with increased activity." "That's caffeine for you." Jake leaned against the counter, enjoying his own mug. "Give it a few minutes. You'll feel more alert, more energetic. That's why humans drink it in the morning." Zixa Theta drained half the mug in one extended sip. "Remarkable. On my planet, we achieve alertness through photosynthetic meditation. This is much faster." He paused, his expression shifting to what Jake had learned was curiosity. "You said this was about social bonding?" Jake nodded. "Coffee breaks, coffee dates, coffee meetings. Half of human social interaction revolves around drinking coffee together. It's an excuse to talk, to connect. When you tried to join your co-workers, you were missing the key element." "The coffee?" "Exactly. Tomorrow, bring your own mug. Ask someone about their weekend. Complain about the weather. That's coffee break protocol." Zixa Theta finished his mug and immediately looked into it with disappointment. "The coffee has been depleted. Want another?" "Yes." The response was immediate, eager. though I question the wisdom of consuming more of this stimulating substance. Jake was already pouring. Welcome to humanity's greatest addiction. Don't worry, it's mostly harmless. The next morning, Jake woke to find Zixatheta already in the kitchen, fumbling with the coffee maker. The alien had apparently been up for hours, judging by the 3 empty mugs in the sink and the jittery movement of his antennae. Morning, Zix. How long have you been awake? Sleep became unnecessary after the 6th cup, Zixatheta replied, his words coming faster than usual. I have been researching coffee on your internet. Did you know there are over 40 species of coffee plants? And humans have created hundreds of preparation methods? I must try them all. Jake rubbed his eyes. Maybe we should talk about moderation. But Zixatheta wasn't listening. He had discovered the French press Jake had forgotten he owned, and was examining it like a sacred artifact. This device uses pressure and steeping time to extract different flavor compounds. Ingenious. Over the next week, their apartment transformed. Zixatheta had ordered a professional espresso machine. The crema formation is scientifically fascinating. A cold brew setup, temperature affects extraction rates, and what appeared to be a small roasting device. Fresh beans are essential, Jake. The alien's integration at work improved dramatically. He arrived at the office with a thermos of his latest brew, offering samples to confused but appreciative co-workers. Soon, he was the center of break-room conversations, discussing brewing temperatures and bean origins with humans who had never seen an alien so passionate about their mundane beverage. You've created a monster, Lisa from accounting told Jake when they ran into each other at lunch. Zixatheta gave a 20-minute presentation on water quality's effect on coffee taste yesterday. Jake grinned. Is he making friends? Are you kidding? He's organizing a cupping session for Friday. Half the office signed up. That evening, Jake found Zixatheta on the balcony, watching the sunset with a mug of what smelled like expensive single-origin beans. The alien's posture was relaxed, contemplative, a far cry from the frustrated being who had stormed in a week ago. You seem happier, Jake observed, joining him with his own cup. Zixatheta's mandibles arranged themselves in what he'd learned was a smile. I understand now. The coffee is not just about the chemical stimulation. It's about the ritual, the sharing, the pause in daily activities. He took a sip. On my planet, we have nothing like this. Every activity has a specific purpose, a measurable outcome. But humans, you create purposes. You make simple things meaningful. That's pretty deep for a Tuesday evening. The caffeine enhances philosophical thought, Zixatheta said seriously, then added, according to my research. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky change colors. The city hummed below them, millions of humans probably enjoying their own evening coffee rituals. Jake realized that through teaching Zixatheta about coffee, he'd rediscovered his own appreciation for the simple pleasure. Jake, Zixatheta said suddenly, I have been thinking, if a simple beverage can carry such social significance, what other human customs have I been missing? Jake considered this. Well, there's pizza night. All 6 of Zixatheta's eyes turned to him. Explain pizza night. It's when friends gather to share circular flatbread covered in cheese and toppings while watching entertainment videos, usually on Fridays. This sounds inefficient. Why not consume individual meals? Because that's not the point. The point is sharing, arguing over toppings, fighting for the last slice. It's about community. Zixatheta's antennae quivered with excitement. I must experience this pizza night for research. For research, Jake agreed, hiding his smile behind his mug. As the evening deepened, Zixatheta began planning. He would need to study pizza varieties, optimal topping combinations, and the social protocols of pizza sharing. His coffee exploration had taught him that human customs were layered, complex, full of unspoken rules and traditions that made no logical sense but perfect emotional sense. Jake, he said as they headed inside. "I believe I'm beginning to understand humans." "Oh, yeah? What's the secret?" Zixatheta considered carefully. "You make the unnecessary necessary. You transform basic survival activities into cultural experiences. You create connection through consumption." He paused. "Also, you're all addicted to caffeine." Jake laughed. "That's the most accurate description of humanity I've ever heard." Later that night, Jake heard the espresso machine whirring in the kitchen. He found Zixatheta perfecting his latte art, creating intricate patterns in the foam with a concentration usually reserved for complex mathematics. "Can't sleep?" Jake asked. "Sleep is for beings who haven't discovered espresso," Zixatheta replied, not looking up from his work. "Besides, I'm preparing for tomorrow's coffee break. Susan from Human Resources mentioned she enjoys caramel macchiatos. I must perfect the recipe." Jake shook his head, amused. 3 months ago, Zixatheta had been an isolated alien struggling to connect with his human co-workers. Now he was pulling all-nighters to perfect coffee drinks for them. If this was how intensely he approached coffee, Jake could only imagine what would happen when they introduced him to pizza, or movies, or sports. The first part of Zixatheta's human education was complete. He had discovered coffee, and through it discovered the human need for connection, ritual, and shared experiences. As Jake headed back to bed, he heard Zixatheta muttering to himself about milk foam density and optimal steam wand angles. The alien was hooked, and this was just the beginning. Friday arrived with an energy that Zixatheta could physically sense in the office atmosphere. Humans moved differently, smiled more readily, and the phrase "weekend" appeared in nearly every conversation. He stood at the coffee machine preparing his 17th experimental latte of the week when Marcus from IT approached. "Hey, Zix, you coming to pizza night at Jake's place?" Zixatheta's antennae perked up. He had been researching pizza intensively for 3 days, but Jake hadn't mentioned hosting an event. "I live at Jake's place," Marcus laughed. "Then you're definitely coming. 7 o'clock. I'll bring beer. You bring that coffee magic of yours for after dinner." "Beer?" Another human consumable to research. Zixatheta made a mental note as Marcus walked away, already calling out to others about tonight's plans. By the time Zixatheta arrived home, Jake was in full preparation mode. The living room had been rearranged, the coffee table cleared and moved aside, extra cushions scattered on the floor. The air smelled of cleaning products and the faint anticipation of social gathering. "Why didn't you inform me we were hosting a gathering?" Zixatheta asked, setting down his briefcase, a human accessory he'd adopted along with his coffee addiction. Jake looked up from arranging plates. "It's spontaneous. Marcus texted me at lunch." I said sure, and word spread. That's how pizza night works. It just happens. Spontaneous social events. Zixatheta processed this concept. "My species plans gatherings 3 cycles in advance. This seems chaotic." "Welcome to human social life. Chaotic but fun. Here, help me pick toppings." Jake showed him a menu on his phone. "We need to order for 8 people with different preferences. It's basically a logic puzzle." Zixatheta studied the menu with the same intensity he applied to coffee brewing. The permutations are extensive. Meat, vegetables, cheese variations, crust types. His eyes widened. "There's a section called specialty pizzas with predetermined combinations. Why would anyone limit their choices?" "Because decision fatigue is real. And sometimes you just want a Hawaiian." "Hawaiian pizza contains no ingredients from Hawaii," Zixatheta noted. "This is linguistically misleading." "Wait until I tell you about French fries." The doorbell rang before Zixatheta could pursue this line of inquiry. Lisa from accounting arrived first, carrying a bottle of wine and a skeptical expression that softened when Zixatheta offered her a perfectly crafted cappuccino. "You weren't kidding about the coffee obsession," she told Jake. "He gave me a 15-minute lecture on bean density yesterday." More co-workers arrived in quick succession. Marcus brought the promised beer, Susan from HR contributed garlic bread, and two developers Zixa Theta recognized but hadn't formally met brought chips and dip. The apartment filled with voices, laughter, and the distinctive sound of beverages being opened. Zix Theta observed from his corner of the kitchen, cataloging behaviors. Humans stood in small groups that constantly shifted composition. They touched frequently, shoulder pats, brief hugs, playful shoves. They consumed beverages before food arrived, which seemed nutritionally backward but socially essential. "Stop analyzing and start participating," Jake said, pushing a beer into one of Zixa Theta's hands. "That's an order." The beer was another revelation. Where coffee was warm and stimulating, beer was cool and relaxing. The fermentation process fascinated him. Humans had discovered multiple ways to alter their consciousness through beverages. He made another mental note to research brewing. When the pizzas arrived, chaos erupted. 8 humans descended upon 4 boxes with enthusiasm that seemed disproportionate to the nutritional offering. There was negotiating, who ordered pineapple, trading, I'll swap you a pepperoni for a veggie, and the mysterious ritual of everyone insisting they couldn't possibly eat more than 2 slices before proceeding to eat 4. Zixa Theta took his first bite of pizza and paused. The combination of flavors and textures was unlike anything in alien cuisine. Melted cheese stretched impressively as he lifted the slice, requiring him to adapt his eating technique. The crust was simultaneously crispy and chewy, the sauce acidic but sweet, the toppings adding bursts of umami and salt. "Good?" Jake asked, grinning at his expression. "It's inefficient," Zix Theta said slowly. "The structural integrity is compromised by the toppings. The cheese creates thermal irregularities. The consumption method risks staining clothing." He took another bite. "It's wonderful." The group laughed, and suddenly Zixa Theta was part of the conversation. They asked about food on his planet, mostly nutrient pastes and crystallized proteins, shared pizza horror stories, delivery arriving cold, wrong orders, the great anchovy incident of 2019, and debated the merits of various chains versus local pizzerias. As pizza consumption wound down, Marcus connected his laptop to Jake's television. "Movie time. What's everyone in the mood for?" This triggered another round of negotiations. Action was proposed and vetoed. Horror was suggested and immediately shut down by 3 people. Comedy seemed safe until they couldn't agree on which type. Finally, they settled on a science fiction film, partly in deference to their alien audience member. "Have you watched human movies before?" Susan asked as Zixa Theta settled onto the couch, his larger frame requiring creative positioning. "I have observed that humans stare at screens displaying fictional narratives. The purpose eludes me." "Entertainment," Lisa said. "Escapism, emotional engagement with imaginary scenarios." "You experience emotions for beings that don't exist?" "Wait and see," Jake said, dimming the lights. The movie was about first contact with aliens, which prompted good-natured ribbing from the group. Zix Theta found himself critiquing the biological impossibilities of the fictional aliens while simultaneously becoming invested in the protagonist's journey. When the main character's partner appeared to die, he was surprised to feel his cardiac organs constricting with sympathetic distress. "The human actress is not actually deceased," he whispered to Jake. "Why do I feel sadness?" "Because you're empathizing with the character, not the actress. Welcome to the magic of storytelling." Zixa Theta watched the humans as much as the movie. They reacted collectively, gasping at surprises, laughing at humor, groaning at poor dialogue. Their emotions synchronized through shared narrative experience. It was remarkably similar to the bonding he'd observed over coffee, but deeper, more complex. When the movie ended with humanity and aliens achieving understanding, Lisa wiped at her eyes. "Gets me every time, the speech about finding common ground despite differences." Bit on the nose, considering present company, Marcus said, gesturing at Zix Theta. Life imitating art, Susan added, though Zix Theta integrated way faster than the movie Aliens. Coffee was your secret weapon. Speaking of which, Zix Theta stood, who desires espresso? The enthusiastic response sent him to the kitchen, where he began crafting individual drinks based on his week's observations of each person's preferences. Lisa liked extra foam. Marcus preferred his coffee strong enough to dissolve metal. Susan wanted decaf, which Zix Theta considered heretical, but prepared anyway. He's taking coffee orders like a barista, Lisa said quietly to Jake. 3 weeks ago, he didn't know what coffee was. Jake watched Zix Theta work, all 4 arms moving in efficient harmony as he operated the espresso machine. He throws himself completely into everything. You should see our apartment. It's basically a coffee laboratory now. The evening wound down naturally. People sipped their coffees, conversation became softer, and eventually the gathering dispersed with hugs, promises to do this again soon, and compliments on Zix Theta's coffee skills. After everyone left, Zix Theta and Jake cleaned up in companionable silence. Pizza boxes were collapsed, bottles recycled, cushions returned to their proper places. The apartment felt larger, emptier, but somehow warmer than before. I understand now, Zix Theta said suddenly, washing the last coffee cup. Pizza night isn't about pizza. Oh? It's about creating a temporary family unit. Humans who normally interact in structured work environments gather in domestic space to share resources and entertainment. The pizza is merely a facilitator, like coffee, but more substantial. Jake dried the cup thoughtfully. That's actually really insightful. I never thought about it that way. The movie serves a similar function. Shared emotional experience creates bonding. Your species has evolved remarkable social technologies disguised as leisure activities. Social technologies, I like that. Jake yawned. So, pizza night success? Highly successful, though I have questions about beer. The fermentation process seems promising for experimentation. Oh no, not another obsession. Zix Theta's mandibles clicked in amusement. Coffee is sufficient for now, but I observed 17 different beer varieties tonight. The taxonomy alone requires study. They finished cleaning, and Zix Theta retreated to his room, though Jake suspected sleep was unlikely given the late-night espresso consumption. Through the thin walls, he could hear the alien typing rapidly, probably researching pizza history or movie production techniques. The next morning, Jake found Zix Theta on the balcony with his morning coffee, watching the sunrise. The alien had arranged a plate of leftover pizza beside him, occasionally taking contemplative bites. Cold pizza for breakfast, Jake observed. You're practically human. I'm testing the temperature-flavor correlation. Cold pizza has different qualities than heated. The cheese texture becomes more solid, the flavors more distinct. He paused. Also, I enjoy it. Enjoyment doesn't need scientific justification. Perhaps not, but understanding enhances enjoyment. Zix Theta turned to look at Jake with all 6 eyes. I've been thinking about next Friday. Already planning another pizza night? No. Research indicates humans have many food-based social gatherings, Taco Tuesday, sushi night, barbecue events, potluck dinners, each with distinct protocols and social functions. Jake laughed. You want to try them all, don't you? My integration into human society requires comprehensive understanding of food-based social bonding. It's purely academic. Sure it is. Just like your 17 different coffee brew methods are purely academic. Zix Theta took a bite of cold pizza, chewing thoughtfully. Marcus mentioned something called game night. This involves competitive activities and snack foods. The social dynamics of competition combined with consumption seem particularly complex. Now that's something I can teach you about. Though fair warning, humans get weird about board games. There are friendships that have ended over Monopoly. Fascinating. recreational competition that threatens social bonds while simultaneously strengthening them. Paradoxical. They sat together, alien and human, sharing cold pizza and hot coffee as the city woke below them. Jake realized that in teaching Zix Theta about human customs, he was rediscovering them himself. Pizza night had always been just pizza night, fun but unremarkable. Now he saw it through alien eyes as the complex social ritual it truly was. "Jake," Zix Theta said suddenly, "I want to reciprocate." "What do you mean?" "You've shared human customs with me. I should share Thraxian customs with you. We have a gathering called light weaving, where we manipulate bioluminescent organisms while sharing harmonic frequencies. It's difficult to explain in human terms." "Are you inviting me to an alien cultural exchange?" "If you're interested. Though we'll need to modify it for human sensory limitations, and you'll need protective eyewear. Some frequencies are intense." Jake grinned. "Absolutely. But first you need to learn about brunch. It's like breakfast and lunch had a baby and raised it on mimosas and social judgment." "Meals can reproduce?" "Metaphorically. Come on, I know a place that does unlimited coffee refills. You'll love it." As they prepared to leave, Zix Theta carefully wrapped the remaining pizza in what Jake recognized as a food preservation technique he'd learned from the internet. The alien was adapting, integrating, becoming something new, not less alien, but more connected. "Hey, Zix," Jake called as they headed out. "What's your favorite human custom so far?" Zix Theta considered carefully. "The assumption of welcome. Humans invite others into their homes, share their food, include strangers in their entertainment. On my planet, such openness would be seen as weakness. Here, it's strength." "That's beautiful, buddy. Also coffee, definitely coffee." Jake laughed as they walked to the elevator. 3 weeks ago, he'd gotten an alien roommate. Now he had a friend who happened to have 6 eyes and a serious caffeine addiction. Life was weird, but weird in the best possible way. The games were spread across Jake's living room table like a buffet of human competitive psychology. Monopoly, Settlers of Catan, Cards Against Humanity, Code Names, and a dozen others that Zix Theta had been studying for the past week. His research had revealed that game night was a deceptively complex social ritual where humans voluntarily subjected themselves to stress, conflict, and occasional friendship-ending betrayals, all in the name of fun. "The key to game night," Lisa explained while arranging chips and dip, "is to care enough to play well, but not enough to flip the table when you lose." "Table flipping is discouraged?" Zix Theta asked, genuinely concerned. He had read about competitive behaviors in gaming scenarios. "Highly discouraged," Marcus confirmed. Arriving with Susan and 2 new faces, Amy from legal and David from the development team. "We lost a good table to Risk in 2021. Never again." Zix Theta served coffee to the arriving guests, each cup tailored to their preferences. His coffee service had become legendary in their social circle. Amy, meeting him for the first time, was visibly startled when the 6-eyed alien handed her a perfect oat milk latte with exactly the right amount of foam. "He knows everyone's coffee order," Susan explained. "It's his superpower." "One of them," Jake added, setting up code names. "Wait until you see him process pattern recognition games. We discovered he can see UV spectrum patterns on the cards." "That's cheating," David protested. "It's biology," Zix Theta corrected. "I've agreed to close my upper eyes during card games to level the playing field." They started with code names, a word association game that revealed fascinating differences in cognition. Zix Theta's associations were logical, but often missed human cultural references. When trying to connect bond and gold, he said molecular, thinking of chemical bonds and gold's atomic properties. His human teammates were thinking of James Bond and Goldfinger. "Your brain works differently," Amy observed, not unkindly. It's like you're playing on hard mode, having to translate between alien logic and human intuition. The challenge is appealing, Zixatheta admitted, though I'm beginning to understand why humans value intuition over logic in social contexts. Logic is predictable. Intuition creates surprise. They moved through several games, each revealing new aspects of human nature. During Monopoly, Zixatheta watched in fascination as normally rational adults became ruthless property moguls. Lisa drove Marcus to bankruptcy with a smile. Susan hoarded railways with dragon-like intensity. Even Jake, usually laid back, turned cutthroat when someone landed on his hotel-laden boardwalk. This game simulates economic competition, Zixatheta noted, paying rent that eliminated half his funds. Yet the resulting emotions are genuine. Why do humans enjoy activities that create actual stress? Controlled stakes, David explained, counting his money with glee. We can experience competition, triumph, defeat, all without real-world consequences. It's practice for life, kind of. Also Schadenfreude, Lisa added, taking Zixatheta's last property. Sorry. Not sorry. Zixatheta's antennae drooped in a gesture Jake recognized as mild distress. I'm experiencing an emotional response to losing fictional currency in a game based on random dice rolls. This is illogical. Welcome to being human, everyone said in unison. During a break between games, Zixatheta retreated to the kitchen to craft what he called gaming fuel. Espresso shots with various flavor profiles designed to enhance focus and reaction time. The humans accepted them with the reverence due to an alien barista's creations. So, Amy said, sipping her lavender honey cortado, Jake mentioned you're going to share some alien customs with us? Zixatheta's eyes brightened. Yes, I prepared a modified version of light weaving. Though first, I must ask, do any of you have photosensitive epilepsy? After health concerns were addressed, Zixatheta retrieved a case from his room. Inside were what looked like crystalline fibers and a device resembling a geometric music box. He dimmed the lights and handed out protective glasses. Light weaving is our primary form of artistic expression, he explained, arranging the fibers in a complex pattern. We manipulate bioluminescent organisms, though these are synthetic substitutes, while generating harmonic frequencies. The result is a synesthetic experience combining sight, sound, and, in our case, electromagnetic perception. He activated the device. The fibers began to glow, pulsing in patterns that seemed random at first but gradually revealed a complex rhythm. The harmonic frequencies were barely audible to human ears, but created a subtle vibration they could feel. Colors shifted and flowed through the fibers like liquid light. Oh, wow, Susan breathed. It's like visual music? Precisely. On my planet, we spend years learning to weave specific emotional patterns. This one represents... He paused, searching for translation. Gratitude for unexpected belonging. The light show continued for several minutes. Jake watched his co-workers' faces, illuminated by shifting colors, completely absorbed in the alien art form. When it ended, there was a moment of profound silence. That was beautiful, Amy said softly. Like meditation, but more active. Can you teach us? Marcus asked eagerly. The basic patterns? Zixatheta's mandibles clicked in pleasure. The manual dexterity required takes years to develop, but I can show you simple forms. They spent the next hour attempting basic light weaving. Human fingers weren't designed for the delicate work, but everyone managed to create simple patterns. Lisa discovered she could make a pulsing star. David created what looked like a tiny aurora. Jake managed a decent spiral that earned approving clicks from Zixatheta. This is harder than it looks, Susan said, her pattern collapsing into random flickers. How long have you been practicing? Since I was a hatchling. It's how we learn to communicate emotions before we develop verbal language. Zixatheta helped her adjust her grip. Young Thraxians weave their feelings when words fail. That's actually beautiful, Lisa said. Humans just cry or have tantrums. We do that too, Zixatheta admitted, but with more colors. As the evening progressed, they alternated between human games and alien cultural exchange. Zixatheta taught them a Thraxian logic puzzle that required thinking in 4 dimensions. They introduced him to charades, which resulted in hilarious attempts to act out human concepts with an alien body structure. "Movie!" David shouted as Zixatheta wiggled all 4 arms while pointing at his eyes. "No, wait! Spider!" "Octopus?" "I was attempting coffee shop," Zixatheta said with dignity. The arm movements represented multiple customers, and the eye pointing indicated observation of brewing techniques. "How was anyone supposed to get that?" Marcus laughed. "Charades is impossible," Zixatheta declared. "I prefer Monopoly bankruptcy to this guessing humiliation." Near midnight, as people began to leave, Zixatheta presented each guest with a small vial of glowing fiber. "Light-weaving starter kits," he explained. "With practice guides I've translated. Consider it cultural exchange homework." "You're the best alien roommate ever," Amy declared, hugging him impulsively. Zixatheta froze, all 4 arms held awkwardly away from her body. "Humans hug," Jake reminded him quietly. "It's like light-weaving, but with touch." Tentatively, Zixatheta brought one arm around to pat Amy's back. "This is pleasant," he decided, "though your spine is more rigid than expected." After everyone left, Jake and Zixatheta sat among the game debris, sharing leftover pizza and fresh coffee despite the late hour. The apartment smelled like snacks and laughter. That particular scent of successful social gathering. "I've been thinking," Zixatheta said, organizing game pieces with 2 hands while eating with the 3rd and holding coffee with the 4th. "Human customs are teaching me about my own species." "How so?" "We have rituals too, light weaving, frequency sharing, communal photosynthesis, but we treat them as necessary cultural preservation. Humans transform everything into celebration. You've made me see that joy is a choice, not a consequence." Jake considered this. "I never thought of it that way. We just do things because they're fun." Exactly. Fun as a primary motivation is revolutionary to me. My performance reports from the home planet question my productivity since arriving on Earth. I spend 47% more time on social activities than the recommended maximum. "What do you tell them?" Zixatheta's eyes sparkled. "That I'm conducting essential research into human integration methods. They don't need to know that the research is teaching me to live rather than just exist." A comfortable silence settled between them. Somewhere in the city, other game nights were probably winding down, other friendships deepening over shared competition and controlled conflict. Jake realized that in just a few weeks, Zixatheta had gone from confused alien to integral part of their social group. "Next week is Halloween," Jake mentioned casually. "It's a human custom where we dress as things we're not and demand sugar from strangers." All 6 of Zixatheta's eyes turned to him. "Explain immediately." "Costumes, candy, parties. People pretend to be monsters, characters, concepts. It's like collective imagination made manifest. I must research this extensively." Zixatheta was already pulling out his phone. "Are there coffee-themed costumes? Can I dress as an espresso machine?" "You could, but maybe something scarier? It's supposed to be spooky." "Decaf coffee is terrifying enough." Jake laughed. "Fair point. We should plan a Halloween party. Invite everyone, make it a costume contest, serve themed food." "Pumpkin spice lattes," Zixatheta interrupted. "I've been perfecting the recipe. The spice combination is mathematically perfect for human taste receptors." "Of course you have." They planned until nearly dawn, Zixatheta taking detailed notes about costume requirements, decoration standards, and the apparently crucial ratio of chocolate to non-chocolate candy. His enthusiasm was infectious, transforming what Jake had always considered a minor holiday into an anthropological adventure. "You know what I've noticed?" Jake said as they finally headed to bed. "You don't just try human customs anymore. You improve them." "Optimization is my species' primary trait." "No, it's more than that. You see what makes them special and amplify it. Like with coffee, you didn't just learn to drink it, you became a coffee artist. With pizza night, you turned it into a real community event. Now you're about to revolutionize Halloween." Zix Theta paused at his bedroom door. "Perhaps that's the ultimate human custom I've learned. Taking something ordinary and making it extraordinary through enthusiasm. That's probably the most human thing you've said yet." "Concerning. Am I losing my alien perspective?" "Nah, you're just becoming a hybrid. Best of both worlds." As Jake lay in bed, he could hear Zix Theta in the next room, presumably researching Halloween traditions. Occasional excited clicks indicated particularly interesting discoveries. Tomorrow there would be coffee experiments with pumpkin spice, costume shopping, and probably a comprehensive spreadsheet analyzing candy distribution patterns. 3 months ago, Jake had worried about living with an alien. Now he couldn't imagine the apartment without the constant whir of the espresso machine, the smell of experimental coffee blends, and the sight of Zix Theta weaving light patterns while discussing human nature. The alien had come to Earth to study humans. Instead, he'd become part of their story, weaving himself into the fabric of their daily lives like light through crystal fibers. He'd discovered coffee, conquered pizza night, mastered game theory, and somehow made every ordinary custom feel like a celebration. "Hey, Zix," Jake called through the wall. "Thanks for making life more interesting." "Thank the coffee," came the reply. "It makes everything possible." Jake smiled in the darkness. Outside, the city hummed with millions of lives, each following their own customs, creating their own celebrations. And in one small apartment, an alien was learning that the secret to human culture wasn't in the customs themselves, but in the connections they created. The coffee maker gurgled to life in the kitchen. 3 a.m. espresso, apparently. Some things transcended species,